Mulberry Trees by Sarah Song in spring 2021. Until I called his name, he was just a gesture. When I called his name, he came to me, he became a flower. From Flower by Kim Chun-soo. At the entrance of my driveway there's a little spot I call Diane's Garden. 10 years ago, a few months after we moved in, Diane, my next-door neighbor, asked me if it would be okay for her to transplant a tree from her backyard to a spot in my front yard. She told me that a pine tree planted too close to her house needed to be removed, but she didn't want to kill it. She was quite friendly. She worked as a nurse and loved horses and gardening. Her garden looked gorgeous. I gladly accepted her offer, and she made a nice little garden with the pine tree, some shrubs, and perennial flowers. Next spring Diane retired and moved to Florida, saying this area is too cold for my horses. Even though she left, the tree and flowers in the garden she planted had grown taller and bigger with each year. The seeds of unknown trees, shrubs and plants also flew in, took roots and grew, which made the spot too crowded. Squeezed between trees and shrubs, hydrangeas and some other perennials failed to bloom or even died. Last fall, my husband, Mike, and I decided to clean up the overgrown parts in our yard. While working in our yard, we often disagree, as I insist on keeping as much as possible while he likes removing whatever he doesn't know. The problem is that he hardly knows anything in the garden, as I'm the one who plants and takes care of it while he plays golf with his buddies every weekend. Excited with a newly purchased tool, Mike started trimming branches and shrubs in the front yard opposite to Diane's garden. Leaving him in the front yard, I told him to check with me before he cut any major things while I was working in the backyard. When I came from the backyard to see how he was doing in the front yard, I blabbed. "What are you doing? Why are you killing all these trees?" He was cutting down trees in Diane's garden. "These are weed trees, aren't they? Do you know what they are?" he said to me, turning off the tool. "I don't know their names. But they don't do any harm. They look rather nice. Why do we have to kill them? I thought you would just trim." My voice was loud in anger. He told me that since there's an electrical pole right next to them, he worried that the overgrown weed trees might cause some problems. This spring Diane's garden was refreshed. I removed all the pervasive vines, transplanted a few hydrangeas to the backyard, and extended the garden to plant perennial flowers such as alliums, iris, daylilies, and hibiscus. In addition, the electrical pole in Diane's garden was removed by the county, which made the space look much cleaner. The trees, that Mike called weeds, grew back tall with plentiful leaves. Soon I noticed lots of berry-like white fruits on those trees. Wondering what they were, I took pictures using PlantSnap, a cell phone app which identifies trees, plants, and flowers. One is a red mulberry, a species of mulberry native to eastern and central North America, and the other is Morus australis, commonly known as mulberry. Mulberry! In my mind popped up the story of Pyramus and Thisbe from Metamorphoses, which my daughter once performed in a school play. And, oh thou tree of many branching boughs, spreading dark shadows on the corpse of one, destined to cover twain, take thou our fate upon thy head, mourn our untimely deaths, let thy fruit darken for a memory, an emblem of our blood. This is what Thisbe said after she found her lover mortally wounded under a mulberry tree and before she put an end to her own life. The mulberry tree from the Babylonian love story was a fantasy to me who had never recognized it and had forgotten the story after such a long time. Pyramus and Thisbe, whose parents refused to allow them to marry, conspired to meet under a mulberry tree near a tomb. Thisbe arrived first, yet departed because of a lioness, leaving her veil behind. The lioness mutilated the veil, which Pyramus later found and committed suicide, believing that she had been devoured by the lioness. And the gods changed the mulberry fruit from white to the color of their blood, as per Thisbe's wish. While these trees were growing every day, I had never realized their names, nor their stories. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. As naive as Juliet from Romeo and Juliet, I might have thought lightly of a name. Koreans traditionally believe a name contains a mysterious law, which plays a role in the process of fortune in life. Hence, different names steer different destinies. Although I can't say that a name defines fate, now I can say for sure that a name and substance are inseparable. A few years ago I wrote a short essay titled A Name reflecting on an annual career forum held at work. Several departments in the finance complex of the World Bank hosted panel discussions or speeches, of which the lecture by Marcello Gigali impressed me. The message of his lecture on how to solve the poverty issues was to know the poor by a name individually, one by one. The World Bank has been trying to solve the problem of poverty by building schools, hospitals, roads and dams, but these were unproductive, only making governments more corrupt. This traditional way of approaching the poor as a group was ineffective. Incidentally, on the same day of the career forum, I had read an article in the Financial Times about the debate on universal basic income. A demonstration project in Madhya Pradesh, India, during 2011 to 2014, provided 6,000 people with a direct cost of living, which proved to be much more effective than government support. UBI is taking place not only in India, but also in Canada, Finland, the Netherlands, and even in Alaska and California in the United States. New York-based charity Give Directly provides a $22 direct monthly subscription to the poor in Kenya. The same goes for issues concerning refugees and immigration. Once, when Trump, president at the time, said he would build a wall to address illegal immigration, someone asked, "What about people who come on a boat via the sea?" And another jokingly said, "Didn't you hear that all the Syrian refugees had fallen into the water and died when the boat turned over?" The Muslims whom Trump dislikes so much do not swim, so he doesn't need to worry about the sea. Their joke saddened me. The Yemenis I met in Sana'a, the World Heritage Site, flashed in my mind. Poverty is not an absence of wealth but the absence of dignity. What Marcello Gigali said resonates once more within me while I pick mulberry fruits turned dark red. Names carry relationships, and the relationships give meaning to life. When the issue of poverty or of refugees and illegal immigrants is approached without knowing individual faces and names, people are recognized only as a group of problems, just like how Mike perceived the mulberry trees to be weeds and tried cutting them down. I tasted a few of the mulberry fruits I picked. How sweet and juicy! I've also learned that mulberry trees attract a host of fruit-loving birds such as bluebirds, orioles, tanagers and warblers when the trees are laden with berries. No wonder several birds have built nests under my deck and in a few trees in my yard. In addition, the mulberry is a superfood that provides protein and antioxidants, and the leaves, if made into tea, inhibit the digestion of sugar, a benefit for diabetics. While I was at it, I cut several leaves and made fresh mulberry leaf tea. In my childhood, my mom always made barley tea and kept it in a jar. In winter we drank it hot and in summer we added ice to make it cold. When did we start buying drinks, even water in bottles and cans? Americans consume more than 25% of the planet's natural resources. The production of bottled water uses 17 million barrels of oil a year. People in the US open 1,000 bottles of water every second and put 60 million plastic water bottles in the trash each year. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency shows that about 2 million tons of aluminum containers including drink cans were generated and over a half of them were landfilled in 2018. Aluminum cans, compared to plastic bottles, have a larger carbon footprint in production because of the vast power needed in the smelting process. How come my life has been so Americanized, forgetting my ancestors' natural way of living and neglecting the impact of my choices on Earth? Suddenly I remembered that Koreans used to make silk and hanji, Korean traditional paper, from mulberry trees. After silk and paper making were imported from China to Korea during Korea's Three Kingdoms period, ancient Koreans developed their own unique method of making hanji out of the bark of mulberry trees, which has strong and durable fibers that are also very soft to the touch. The world's oldest surviving wood block print on hanji, the Mujijongwang Ditaranajing, is reportedly still in good condition. Hanji was used not only as papers for documentation and calligraphy, but also for doors and windows, crafts and even armor. When I was in the 5th grade, we had a Korean calligraphy class every afternoon. My teacher, a slim and gentle, yet charismatic, middle-aged man with glasses, roamed around the classroom overlooking us while we practiced. Patience and persistence, his calligraphy on hanji in a wooden frame was hung above his desk in the classroom. We first had to grind an ink stick on an inkstone with a straightened pose, which was quite boring. If we lost our pose, he used to shout "Focus!" Once I had found out the trees' names with an app, I recognized that there were several mulberry trees in my yard. 2 of them, one on the side and the other in the backyard, were both quite big, taller than 30 feet. So many black mulberry fruits fell on the ground. Even if I may not be able to make silk or hanji from those trees, I can make mulberry leaf tea. I picked quite a lot of leaves and dried them up. After boiling the leaves in water, I cooled it down and made 2 cups of iced tea. Surprisingly, it has a pleasant aroma, with a smooth and slightly sweet taste. Until I called their name, they were just weeds. When I called their name, they came to me, and they became savory tea.